So the next time we get together, Sage ERP ACCPAC will be called Sage ERP 300, and I'm sure at some point Sage will have something to say about whether we can continue to use the name ACCPAC or not, but just be aware that ERP 300 and ACCPAC are the same thing. So what are we going to do in 20 minutes today? Well, we're going to take a look at Financial Reporter. This is the product that's built into the General Ledger. It does require a compatible version of Excel, and basically what this Financial Reporter does is it includes an Excel add-in that will give you a live link in Excel in addition to some formatting commands that allows you to design financial statements in ACCPAC. I'm going to show you a document that's in your documentation called the FR Quick Reference, and I recommend that you find it on your system. And we're going to talk a little bit about the elements of a financial statement, GL accounts and account groups, and then we'll take a look at using the Financial Statement Designer. So if I didn't introduce myself initially, I'm Bob Palmer. I'm president of Data Guidance Group. And what we're going to take a look at now is how to get to that documentation. If you open your program menu and go to All Programs, and then go down to your Sage ACCPAC and open that, you'll see you have a link to documentation, not the online, but the documentation. When you click this, it opens up a window that should look something like this. And you've actually got two documents here that relate to the Financial Reporter. The Sage ACCPAC FR Quick Reference is the first one, and the User Guide is the second one. And they're both good. They both explain the Financial Reporter. The User Guide is this document. It's, as you can see, 206 pages long. The other document, and the one I want to recommend that you take a look at, is the Financial Reporter Quick Reference. It's only 24 pages long. So if you take a look at the Financial Reporter Quick Reference, you'll see that it starts out on about the third page with how a financial report specification is laid out. We're going to take a look at that in just a bit. But the place to start with financial reports is really with your accounts, your chart of accounts, that is. So let's go to the General Ledger chart of accounts. Now, if you are already using ACCPAC, which most people probably are, you'll already have a chart of accounts set up. Every version of ACCPAC since about 5.5 has included a little add-on product that allows you to change your account numbers. So if you want to do what I'm going to suggest you do, you have a tool that's available in ACCPAC to actually change those account numbers, even if your account numbers currently are not in order. You're going to find that your financial reporting is a lot easier if your accounts in the trial balance are in the same order roughly that you want to see them on the financial statement. The best thing is to put them in exactly the same order you want them. But if you can't do that, then get them as close to the right order as you possibly can. The second thing you need to know about, and let me show you where this is, it's actually in General Ledger setup. There's something called account groups. Now, these have changed a little bit if you hadn't looked at them for a while. You've always had this concept of account groups. Now you've got a sort code that shows over here, and you'll notice it's the same as the account group code. And you've got a group category. If we go across here, you'll notice that now you can put account groups into other account groups. So for example, here we've got provision for income taxes that's in the group category other current liabilities, and these other current liabilities are just the groups that are already there. So you're actually grouping on two levels. This can be helpful in doing financial statements. And then these account group codes, if we go back to the chart of accounts and click on an account, are then assigned to accounts. And that's the basic setup of the account. Another thing you want to look at in your account is to make sure your normal balance is set correctly. There's a way to use the financial reporter that will take this normal balance into account, so that if you have an account that's normally a debit, it has a debit in it, it will show it as a positive number. If you have an account that's normally a debit, it has a credit, it'll show it as negative. But if the account is normally a credit and it has a debit, it will also show it as a negative number. So you want to make sure that all these things are set up right before you start with your financial statement design. When you want to run the financial reporter, you go into this area, the print financial statements area, and you actually click on Statement Designer. And when you do that, it will launch a little box that looks like this. When you click Start, it will then run Excel. And the way you know it's running in Excel is you should have an Add-ins tab up here. And if you click on the Add-ins tab, you should see FR and perhaps Report Tools, but FR for sure. So that's the way I know that the add-in to Excel is actually there. So first, let's take a look at the financial statements that are actually built in that come with the product. Some people have a little trouble finding these, so let me show you where they are. Whatever the directory that you installed ACCPAC in, and on this particular company or computer, it's ACCPAC. If you installed it in program files, you could very well have the ACCPAC software on this directory down here in program files. But on this system, it's just in the ACCPAC directory. Wherever that directory is, you'll have one directory for each of the components, but you'll have one for General Ledger when you click on that. Then you'll have an ENG folder inside, and here are all the financial statements that come with ACCPAC pre-built. Now, if we open this income summary up, you will see that these statements use account groups. So this line is going to pull account group code 15. This will pull 19, 16, 17, or 18, as you can see up here at the top in the bar. So this is a way to code using account groups that will pull the groups. All of these built-in statements for several years have been built based on these account groups. And yet, most companies do not use account groups because their financial statements either need to be more complex or more summarized or a variety of other things. But if you can use account groups, this is a good statement, and I'll show you on this. If I want to run this here, I can just go to FR, do FRView, and what's going on here? Hang on. All right, something's not showing. Let me close Excel and we'll open it again. Okay. Now we'll go to that one. All right. And add-ins, FRView, and we get something to select the year and period. In the sample data, all the data pretty much is in 2019, so I'll go there. I can also select how I want this, whether I want it consolidated or separate. I can consolidate my account. The way you use this is, let's suppose I've got several divisions and I have a financial statement that I want to print for the company with all the divisions, and then I want an individual statement for each division. By selecting division here, I can select the range of divisions, but I can also tick separate up here and it will print a separate financial statement for each division. So I'm going to go back to consolidated and we'll go back to account and say OK. And you can see it actually builds what financial statement it can on the 2012. Let's do that again and do 2019. You can see it actually builds the financial statement here on the spreadsheet. And if I come up here and go to print, preview, then you can see that there is a range set that I don't get all the stuff at the top. I just get the financial statement itself. So this is the tool, and let's take a look now at this quick reference so that you can start to kind of understand what these different codes do. Notice that this is laid out in columns. Column A tells generally what the financial reporter is going to do when it does a financial statement. So if we flip back over here, this right here is going to print, and you can find these back over in the reference. Anything that has backslash sets up defaults. So on this line, we get the defaults, what's going to appear in the different columns. We'll talk about that in just a second. All right. And if we look at the close the user guide, if we look at column B, it says restricts the range of accounts in column A. So in this particular case, we're restricting the accounts to those that are in account group code 15. % in column A, if you look back over here, will print every account. That's going to print all the accounts, and it's going to print them individually. So if we scroll down here, you see we get all the individual accounts that are in the sales group, which is group 15. All right, column C then lets you do some different things in column C. You can see different things in terms of printing or not printing the line. Biggest thing people do in column C is to put a Z. And if you look here, I'm printing on this statement lines that have 0 balances in them. If I come over here to column C and I put a Z in that column, and then I generate the financial statement again, it should omit any 0 balance accounts that are in that group. And so you see now I don't have any of the 0 balance accounts. That's the most common use of C. Column D allows you to print totals. If you put a T in column D, you're going to get a total of all the accounts. So for example, up here, you can see I have a D, which is going to give me the detail of things on that row. So here's the detail of everything on that row. You'll notice on the other revenue or and cost of sales as well actually includes several accounts, but they're printed as a single line. That's because of the T that generates a total of everything that prints on the line. All right, so that's the basic. First 4 columns control the basic what's going to print. And I encourage you to think of these statements as vertical and then horizontal layout. This right here, these rows that I've got highlighted are going to control the vertical layout, what's going to actually print in terms of accounts and descriptions along the side of the income statement or balance sheet. Now, this column sets defaults for the rest of the financial statement, and these cells right here tell the report writer what to include in the financial statement column that's below them. So for example, here this says print the account ID underneath this column, not in this cell, but because this is a setting line with 2 backslashes, everywhere below this that you see a backslash, you will get this lookup. There's a list of these codes over here as well. This tells you things you can put in column A, how to do account ranges and things like that. This shows you options for column B, and then when you get down here, it'll show you options for summarizing things in that column D by different ways. When we get down to here, this is where we start with different options to put in these columns, and you can see all the things that you can actually have the system list And this is the FR account, which gives you the information that's on the chart of accounts. There's an easier way to do this than looking back in the documentation, although the documentation is helpful, and that's to use this FR paste function here. So let's say I know I want some account information, which is what this is. I can now go down and say what I really want is the account description, and notice it builds here. These are the other things that I could put in to there. I'm going to say paste and then close, and now you'll see I've got account description in that block. If I again regenerate the financial, down here where I had an account number before, I will have an account description. In this column, I've got a year-to-date balance where the second segment of the account number is 100. This is a way, for example, this would be something like Department 100, Department 200, Department 300 total. So I would put in this column a code that said, give me the year-to-date balance, give me the year-to-date balance for 200, give me the year-to-date balance for segments where they're blank. You know, that's what these are for, net year-to-date. Now, be careful with these kind of formulas if you ever get to these kind of formulas, because some things you can do here actually don't work with these account group codes. And most people, as I said before, don't use these account group codes. They do this another way, which I'm going to show you in just a second. This below this summary line, and again, this is all a line that tells the system what I want to print in the columns below. A backslash prints exactly what that is. So a backslash is going to print the balance of the account year to date. A backslash with a minus prints the same thing, only it flips the sign. So in this case, it's going to flip the sign of these from debit to credit. Now notice this column is using FR amount A. That actually gives you debits as positives and credits as negatives. This one is using FR amount without the A, and that gives you the balance with reference to the normal balance. So if the normal balance is debit, it's positive if it's a debit. Normal balance is debit, it's negative if it's a credit, and so forth. So you do have two different things. You can see both of these on the FR paste. In order to get a description of these, you're going to have to go back to this document, and if we scroll down to FR amount, you'll see that it says it respects the type of account and what I just said. If you scroll down even more, you'll see the description of the next one, which is FR amount A, and it tells you it shows debits as positives and credits as negative, which is just what I said. If you use this paste, you'll find that you don't have to memorize the codes exactly, but you will have to look them up. So FR paste, if I want an amount, now I can say, and this is where you're going to need to know BAL P is current period. All of these down in here you may want to look up just to make sure that you understand exactly what these codes do, and they're all described in that quick reference. And then you can even put designators which control the quarter or the month that's included. Some of these codes give you budgets, some of these codes give you actuals, some of these codes give you transactions that are entered into the system as temporary transactions that haven't been completely finalized yet. Different options here. You can also actually control the year, although typically you want to control the year when you generate the financial statement. All right, so that's an example of the basic building of a financial statement. Now let me show you kind of a shell financial statement. That is how most people will do financial statements for historical reasons, I think. And this right here you can ignore. We're going to look at these two lines right here. This is actually using account numbers on the column A, which you can certainly do. So this will give you all the accounts between 4,000 and 4,999. If I go back here to the reference and go back up, you will see here that it talks about your options for column A and what the codes actually mean, because you can do a lot of things in column A. So this is a very simple use of column A. Single accounts, account department. You can do ranges of accounts, which is what we're doing here, and the ranges can include or exclude segments of the accounts. You can do %%, which matches basically everything that starts with AAA and ends with anything else. A squiggly will do a range, and you can do combinations of things that are fairly complex here. So there's the description of everything that's legal in column A. So this is typically how we see clients building financial statements. Now the problem here that we've had for quite a while is clients would look at this and they'd say, well, I want to print accounts 4,000 through 4,099 here, and then down below I want to print 4,100. And so you'd see a couple of things here. And I'm just going to insert a couple of columns so that I can show you what I see a lot. One thing that people will do is they'll start listing the account numbers. And that's okay. This financial statement writer will let you do that. Another thing people will do is they'll say, well, I want 4,000 to 4,099. And then they'll come down here and they'll say, and 4,100 goes here, and maybe the next account is 4345, and they'll start listing individual accounts. They'll come back under here and they'll say, well, the next account in my chart of accounts is 4234, and I want to go from there to 4500, which is the last account. Now, here's the problem with doing it this way. What's going to happen eventually in most companies is somebody's going to add an account. I'll delete this. Somebody's going to add an account 4150. And if you look at this carefully, you'll see there's no provision for account number 4150. And so the question is, what happens in that scenario? And the answer is it doesn't show on the financial statement, and the financial statement actually doesn't reflect the correct profit of the business and doesn't reflect the profit on the trial balance. So first thing I would suggest, or I do suggest to clients that are using this, is when you get a financial statement off the system, run a trial balance at least to the screen. The trial balance is going to give you a number at the bottom for the income. That income number is going to be the sum of all the accounts that are tagged for the income statement. So it could be that you'd have an account tagged wrong, but typically that number should balance whatever you get at the bottom of the income statement for net income or loss. And it should also be the same number that you get up on the balance sheet for your current year net income or your combined net income or whatever you call it. So that's the first thing, is make sure you balance them. That'll at least tell you that it's out. The other thing I suggest to people in building these is actually go ahead and account for every account. So I go from 4,000 to 4,099, and 4,100 goes down here. I suggest that instead of picking up with the next account on the chart of accounts, you go ahead and start with 4,101 and then go to 4,500. All right, the difference between this line and this line is this line, actually these two lines plus this one, account for all the account numbers between 4,000 and 4,500. Even if you don't have accounts in that range, that's fine. It will keep you from getting a financial statement out of balance and not realizing it. So this is how a typical client account statement winds up getting built, is with ranges of accounts. Again, to go back to what I said a few minutes ago, if you put the accounts in order and renumber the ones that are not in the correct order for the financial statement, you don't have this problem. Also, if they're roughly in the right order on the financial, on the chart of accounts, and you can use account segments or account group codes like this, you don't have to list individual accounts. And the good thing about account group codes is you have to assign an account group to every account. So if you if you put all the account groups in the financial statement somewhere, you're guaranteed that you're not going to run a financial statement that omits something. So that is a really basic 20-minute introduction to ACCPAC, Sage ERP 300, formerly known as ACCPAC financial statements. As you can probably see, this is a really key document, some sort of a reference document on the financial statement or financial report writer, and it has a lot of detail and a lot of possibilities with it. I did not cover and didn't really plan to cover. You can actually print transactions on the financial statement now. So if you have an account in particular that you want to analyze every month, you can build a financial statement to print transactions. You can use optional fields now. If you missed the segment on optional fields that we did a couple of months ago, that's recorded. It's up on the website under publications and then videos. They'll show you how you can use optional fields, but you can actually use optional fields now in the financial statement, which is quite useful. And I have not run into anything in the financial report writer in several years of doing this, 20-some years of doing this. I hadn't run into anything yet that I couldn't do. With the possible exception of for a while it was not possible to do division comparisons in columns, division 100, 200, 300, 400. You can now do that, and I haven't run into anything that I can't do with this thus far. There might be something, but I hadn't run into it. So that's a quick introduction to the financial reporter, very flexible tool. You can also, let me say, wrap Excel around this. So you can calculate percentages, you can build graphs, you can do anything that you would normally do in Excel wrapped around the financial report writer or financial reporter in ACCPAC. So that's the end of our 20 minutes. Actually, it's probably a little more than 20 minutes, and we'll stop there. There is a schedule out there on the website of what we're going to cover this quarter.